Dominic, you have been shaping digital product creation for years now. You started your journey, I think, in 2009, if I'm not mistaken, where you discovered that 3D could transform the collaboration between developers, designers, as well as factories. And you've been driving digital change ever since. You've worked with brands, with and for brands like Nike, Tommy Hilfiger, Kevin Klein, but also Marks and Spencer's lately. You've been inside these kitchens of major brands, helping build their real-world DPC strategies. So since then, you've played a key role in Stitch 3D. It was a PVH-backed startup, which you helped you gain insights, which led you to co-found Enhance That. It's a company dedicated to simplifying and automating digital workflows for brands and tech companies. So now that I gave a little introduction about Dominic,
expectation is rising.
It's a huge career. I would like you to explain a little bit more about your professional background. Tell me a little bit about what your journey was like.
Yeah, the journey was like, it's kind of flew by, but I was actually thinking about our conversation in advance of this, and I think there's been a lot of times that I'm thinking like, oh, I hope this has been the right decision. But I think since kind of COVID time, it felt pretty like, okay, this is not going to go away anymore. Before that, the risk was, I think, much higher. But yeah, it's been an interesting journey. I've always been like fascinated by, as a product developer, how like the first time I saw and I felt using 3D, and I was super early and it wasn't as smooth. It could not remember the simulation. So every time you open up a file, you need to do a complete new simulation. But still I could see like, hey, all of this information is in one file. And up to that time, I was reading bills of material. That's not my strongest point. So when I became visual and I could visually communicate with my designers, but also the factory, I felt like, hey, this is going to change the way we do our work. So that's really where it's been a starting point for me.
I mean, I can really relate to that, because when I started with 3D, it was like 12 years ago now, I believe. I was still in university, and some people from another course, because they had a 3D design course also in the same building. They were more focused on game design and VFX. They mentioned to me, oh, try Marvelous Designer, which is similar to Clo, right? But back then that was more known. And I was like, this is really nice. Like, it took a while back then because of the simulation and all of it. It was still kind of slow, but it kind of gave me this idea of how the future could look like.
Yeah.
And we are there now. Like, brands are using it, right? So tell me a little bit of like how you see like the industry evolving over the last few years. Do you see a major shift?
Yeah, definitely. I think I already said, right? I think COVID was a big shift, but even before COVID, like that journey for me from getting hands on myself, I realized like, okay, wait a second. I started to work with factories first, and trying to get them, like, if I could establish the digital product communication, like creating a new language of how we need to look and talk about digital product. If I could reset that language with a factory and we could communicate that way, that would be amazing. And I think we like everybody, we started back then in creating some digital standards and describing what quality is and training our own digital eye with a group of factories. But then it's like, okay, but wait a second, we need to involve design. Like, you cannot do this. This would be, if this proves to be working, so I can communicate with a factory a true digital product, great. But if I cannot involve design, if design is not getting excited by this, it's still gonna fall, right? It's not gonna work. And it stays isolated in a very small section of the business, and it's not gonna scale, it's not gonna grow. Like, always focus on how to scale it. Yeah. So I think getting design involved has been like a crucial moment. And we try to do that back in the days at Nike with small, little hacks, how to make a workflow that is design that is liked by a designer. But I think since COVID, the tools got a lot better, and COVID, I think, changed a lot of things for the design community. People started to embrace 3D as a design exploration, right? As a new way to look at design, and that was, I think, like the last push that we really needed.
Yeah, both of our journeys, I think, started with 3D in that sense. My journey has shifted a lot towards AI now.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have the same experience for your business at the moment.
In a sense, yes. We've done a lot of experimentation. I think there's a massive opportunity, right? Like 3D. I think it's the crossover, right? It's where 3D meets AI. Underneath both 3D and AI, there's still a digital transformation. No matter what tool you're going to use, right? You need to change your processes, your technology, your skills, and depending on what tools, the 3D AI combination, like that recipe changes. But regardless, there's always digital transformation. I think that misunderstanding is sometimes there. Oh, we now did 3D, but it's actually a little harder. We need to change a lot of processes, technology, blah, blah, blah. You know what? Let's go AI. I don't think that's going to work. You still have to go through all of that. But 3D is amazing in product accuracy and being able to kind of engineer a garment in terms of consumption, construction, price, etc., getting it ready for sign off and manufacturing. But what AI brings to the table is that we can get the quality, that emotional level, right? That you can connect with a digital product much further and much richer in a much faster way, and standardize and automate it. And that is that's the real opportunity that I'm looking for.
So you mentioned the change management challenge a little bit here. I can hear like it's just a lot of work. We need to change workflows. What other like big challenges do you see when it comes to implementing new technology?
Change management and what we do is enhance that, right? We came from digital transformation as a whole. What I found is like, you find a value in technology, right? You have a problem, and then you're going to fix that, and you use technology to fix that problem or improve the output. Like you do that first at small scale, and then you got to scale it up. I've been in a lot of companies where we did that first bit and then had to scale it up, and that's what I like the most. And I think that's where a lot of value is. So how are you going to go from a proof of value to something implemented, right? And what you need to do there is, first of all, change management, but second, and maybe actually first, you need to make it very easy, and it needs to be able to scale. And in order to do that, you need to integrate it into the rest of your systems and your tools, and you automate the process. That's what we're fully focused on with Enhance That, because I think no matter what tool, and definitely AI, you have to do that. You have to make sure that it works with the rest of your tools. Seamless.
When I started in Vila, it also started more on the technical side, working with pattern designers, working with the factories on 3D. Then we went to the designers, as you just mentioned, as a next step. But then we actually tried to really expand this whole initiative of digital transformation upstream and downstream. So it also went all the way to marketing. It also went to pack picture creation. It also went to models. Are you also in touch with these topics?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's 100% it, right? Like once you know what you want to fix and you get the quality right? I think this is also for AI. You need to know what is the quality that you need to get, right? You don't want to get over, it just don't want to get it too good. You also don't want to get it under like too low quality. It needs to be fit for the purpose, and every purpose needs a different quality. And
Exactly.
but definitely there, I think the best solution is the solution that a user doesn't even know it's actually happening, right? All of these processes need to happen in the background without me as a developer, merchandiser, designer having to kind of be even thinking about what system this all needs to go to and what team needs what kind of setting or asset or whatever, right? That's the stuff that we need to automate, because then digital transformation is going to create value. That's the carrot you're going to give to your users, right?
I think that it is also very important to think about what can be done in-house and what
Yeah,
can be outsourced. Because
yeah,
some things are already outsourced. You have a lot of companies who outsource image editing or video creation or even the pack images. Like all of that, not all of that, but most of that can be outsourced very easily. So the question is also, when you think about automation, where do you outsource and where do you keep it in-house?
like first you need to find what actually works, right? And you need to do that
Sure.
in the fastest way possible. That's definitely outsource, or get external expertise in to figure out like, hey, what AI tool, how is it going to work? Like we have a specific problem. What are all the ways to solve it? But I think as soon as you find a little bit of value, you need to get involved, right? You need to invest, you need to learn, you need to understand what it takes also to scale and to grow it. And I can tell you from when we took our expertise, because I'm started enhanced that with some of my Stitch teammates, with Yuri and John. And when we started enhanced that, we were thinking like, that needs to be some kind of product, right, that you can buy as a company that is automation and integration. But the reality is that people just want to understand it as well. They wanna own it to a certain extent. When it comes to integration and automation, teams, companies, brands want to own it, and I think there's a very good reason for that, right? They want to learn a little bit, right? They don't want to be when it comes to these core systems and processes, they don't want to be 100% relying on something external. And so what we started to do, we said like, okay, we can help you to go from 0 to 100 in a fraction of the time that it would take you to figure this out completely yourself. And we train you up. Yeah.
If you understand the workflow in-house, then you can like plug and play with different solutions and vendors, but you need to understand the overall
You need
scope,
to have
right?
some
Yeah.
basic level of understanding. And I think what some of the examples that I've seen, like, I think it's not right to think as a fashion company that's like, we need to own it all. I've been there, seen it. It's not going to work, right? That's not you need to focus on what you're good at, right? But you do need to have a kind of a foundational level of understanding and expertise when it comes to technology and how to integrate, how to automate. But make sure that you have a good layer of that and work with external companies to speed that understanding up. And especially in the AI space, right? It's so fast. There's so much happening.
AI is changing the way we create, right? We talked a little bit about design, and we talked about factories. It is not just automating tasks, but it's really embracing and enhancing human creativity, I believe. So how do you see this playing out in fashion?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. First of all the things that we have already been doing, that a lot of brands are doing, that are in DPC. You have digital product creation. You use AI in the beginning process to iterate ideas faster, then you translate them into 3D to get them technically right, and then you bring AI in again to combine that accuracy with the visual impact, so your assets can shoot to all different directions for the right quality, the right thing, right? I think that's the baseline. Yeah. Next to that, I'm also a big fan of using all of your 3D elements to train your AI. That's something else. But and on the other side, besides all of the business that we're doing today, I think AI is going to open up a completely new way of how we look at how to make and sell clothing. I'm a big fan of this idea that we need to explore, like, how do we sell before we make? How do we use technology in the real advantage, right? I think everyone who ever worked with 3D could already feel this opportunity of that you can create things that do not exist yet, but they can exist, right? It gives you 3D, gives you that power and accuracy to create something that that can be produced, not 99% accurate to how you designed it. We can price it, we can prepare manufacturing for it, but now with AI, we can actually make it commercially look good. And I think that will open up doors for new business models when we get manufacturing in a efficient setup to do lower minimum order quantities and be able to respond very quickly on that. So I see a future where we create capsules that only get produced when we sold enough of it. Exclusive capsules.
I think a use case that I have seen more recently, because I talk to a lot of brands myself on a day-to-day basis, is that model images and in general visual content, it's more and more important when we look at e-com. Like, customers demand so much these days. And especially when it comes to diversity, they want to see it on different models, on different body shapes. Like, it's really hard for a marketing department to keep up with that. It's really expensive to do all of that. So what I've seen brands doing lately is that they photograph a garment that could be on just a fit model, for example. So a physical garment, so not 3D, but they would only have one sample. And then they can show it on a range of models. And they can actually create really beautiful, stunning images with AI. Where do you see this going in 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I don't know. And I'm happy I don't know. I mean, it's an exploration. But I definitely hope that we're gonna think different in different business models and different ways of how we manufacture and how do we sell. Because what I'm really tired of is this enormous amount of overdevelopment, overproduction, and the very little value that goes into physical clothing, because we need to compensate for all of the waste in business processes that we kind of accepted along the way. And it's been a race to the bottom when it comes to price. And I think it's so incredibly painful knowing what we can do with technology and it's not only technology, right? But what technology enabled us, how technology enabled us to change business processes and really optimize. But I think that technology can evolve very fast, but it's the human habits that adopt very slowly. And I think there is a lot, one of the things that I'm very most proud of what we did over all of those years, it's not the technology, to be honest. It's how we made impact in people's way of thinking. We started to do beginning PVH days. We started to work on a workshop. It's called Product in a Day, and we used the concept many years after that in many different variations. But it was about bringing a couple of designers from the different brands into a room with some digital expertise, plus students from Amsterdam Fashion Institute, and they went into a workshop of one day where they first digitally designed the garment and then made it in the afternoon. So in one day you go from ideation into physical making. It's proving the case that
the whole physical garment in one day.
Make the garment in one day. What I wanted to show and what we wanted to experience, give people this feeling of for investing in digital product creation, to get closer to the physical product, not to get further away. We want to bring you closer, and technology brings you closer. And that was a huge success, and we still use it. The same principle we still use with our clients. And it's just because you need to get you need to look different at technology. You need to look at it as something that brings you closer to what you love doing. But what we need to do as an industry, as a transformation tech industry, is emphasize that side of the business and not only the features. How is this going to impact you and make you better?
Yeah, I think that goes back to making it fun, right? Because I also felt like when I started with digital transformation in my career, that it took quite long to get people to accept the change, longer than I expected, because I am naturally just excited about change. That's just my personality. So I'm just like, hey, great change. Let's test it. Let's see if it brings value. If it doesn't, of course, it shouldn't just be implemented for fun. Like, it needs to add value. There needs to be a business case. No question about that. But anything that can help the business, I'm just genuinely interested in. But that's not everyone. When I was implementing AI avatars, or like AI images in AI models, the first reaction was like, oh, but how does it change my day-to-day work? Like, am I out of work? Does it mean that, oh, we're never going to have model shoots again? Am I going to be replaced? How are my tools changing? Like, do I need to learn new things? How am I going to learn new things? Do I need to go to workshops? Do I have time for that? So like, panic sets in immediately.
There's a couple of things I noticed. Regardless of the technology, this is happening. So it doesn't matter how good your feature or technology is, this is always going to happen. So that's a fact. So we can prepare for that. Second, the emotions are always real, right? And I think what I've seen and what I've learned along the way is that to embrace those emotions and try to really get under the skin of those emotions, right? Okay, how must that feel? And what we try to do is always respect those emotions and create physical experiences. So no slideshows, but hands-on workshops, walkthroughs that actually respects that emotion and shows how actually the solution brings them closer to what they want to do. That's what I said as well with that product in a day. But it will be. I also did for a company. Actually, we use this example for multiple companies, that we created the workflow of the future. We did a setup, and we invited every type of people, every type of role, starting with leadership, but then also HR, finance, to go and experience what the new workflow is of a designer, of a merchandiser. And they might not have the skills to do all of that, but we made it very simple so they can actually relate to the change, the impact that the company is going through. Because if you know that your colleague in merchandise is going to go through all of this change, you feel excitement, but you also feel a little bit of empathy, right? It's like, hey, I understand this is really difficult and this is hard. And so it's not that digital transformation is not for only one particular person in a role. It's a company thing, right? You need to get excited, but also mindful of change as a company and say to each other, this is not easy. Manage expectations, yeah. And it's an emotional roller coaster, and you need to connect those emotions through physical experience. That really gets me very excited, as you can see.
Yeah, me too, because I feel like I have to admit, like, it took some time, but I had to admit it to myself as well. In the beginning, when I started, very young, very motivated, right? Like, I maybe wasn't that empathetic. Let's say the first 6 months, I was just excited and couldn't understand why everyone around me wasn't. Or to be fair, you have people who are very excited and then they have crazy expectations, which are not realistic.
And you have
the people who are scared. Yeah. Right. And you need to like kind of bring them together and also help them work with each other to move forward together. And I think that's also something I had to learn. And it's always a process, right? To have that empathy and really get people to move with you and not just push them.
But I think, Charlotte, like, people like yourself, including me, we're very excited about new things, right? We're kind of future focused. We're looking at opportunities. So for us, it's really hard to kind of go back into the day to day. But one of the things I did in my Nike times, which really helped me, and it was, I had a great manager, and she said to me, like, you know, what you should do, you go and sit, because was focused very much on manufacturers, but I wanted to work with designers. But every time I walked up to the design floor, somehow the design floor is always a level higher, right? When I walked up to the design floor to show my new amazing, findings and features and images, they were like, go away. So she said to me, like, go and sit there, spend time with them, sit there for a couple of months and just emerge. And that really helped, because I got to understand what is their language, like their verbal language, but also their visual language. What visual language do I need to speak in order to reach them? But also, what are some of their challenges? What gets them excited? And it really helped, because I created some really good relationships that helped me for years. And still today, I think of those little things that they said, how they reacted, how they responded to change. And it still helps me today to think through their eyes.
But let's talk a little bit about the consumers. How does it work with e-commerce? How do consumers react to AI? So personalized shopping experience, hyper-realistic AI visuals, digital content is very dynamic. And how does it impact the consumer?
Yeah, I think you might know more about this than me. I'm pretty sure you do. And so I've not spent so much time on that yet. I think we haven't got to that stage. I do think it is a enormous has an enormous potential, because what I did see is that e-com marketing has an incredible pool. If you look at a company there at the end, right, and they have the leverage to really pull digital assets. And I still believe that product creation in the beginning, the creative process, needs to feed a lot of that, right? So if there's a strong use case at the end, it can really pull those assets through the whole process. So that's what I think is very important. If there's marketing, e-com opportunity, I'm all for, because that creates them. In the traditional e-com, it's still relatively hard. The e-com teams that I work with, and I'm sure they're listening, so we need to be careful. But no, let's not be careful. I think it's still a very conservative world, right? It's they're real experts. They see things that I don't see. So they have a very particular eye for anything that is kind of off-brand or whatever. The test that I've done with AI images, and that's months ago, so that world already changed. But they were able to see things that I didn't see, and they said, "Oh, this is not good enough. That's not good enough." I really think that that's where we also need to look at. Okay, but wait a second. If we can create digital product without it having to exist, should we not look and rethink at how we sell it? Does it need to be through like traditional e-com, like a product page with flat shots and maybe a short video and product details? Maybe it just needs, if you can do things different, like would it not be worth to kind of rethink how that needs to look like?
Exactly. All right. To wrap this up, I always love to ask my guests, where do you see AI in 5 to 10 years? What are the biggest trends?
There's a lot of things that we don't know yet. I think there's too much that we don't know. I really hope that it's going to give us all of the opportunities to really rethink fashion as a whole. Like, I would love to see that we're going to, as I mentioned earlier, right, that we create and sell before we make. that's my biggest hope for AI, that it can unlock that opportunity, that it will actually drive a lot of creativity, because we don't need to worry about, is this commercial enough? Is this going to sell? Don't worry about it. Just try it. If it sells, then you make it. And because of AI and all of the technology that we connect all together, we're able to run that process relatively quickly, and it's all focused on creativity and creating unique value, unique products that are well made. That's what I hope for. And if it's up to me, that's going to happen. I would love to work on that. We are working on it.
Yeah, I know you are, and you're working with amazing brands. It's really cool. But maybe I can also ask you for some advice, because I know you always give me really good advice when I was still working at Vila and we had our calls here and there. So starting up is probably the hardest thing for brands. So when it comes to starting up with new technology such as AI, where should they begin?
Yeah. Okay. Start with the problem, not with the technology. That's number one. It's hard, because especially for people like us, where we get excited, right? And I think there are so many more people in our business that see new technology and they think, oh, that means that we can do that. I think it's really important to find the problem that fits with that you want to solve. Find the problem, measure it, and start small. But measure your impact. But really stick to a small scale. Analyze it, involve the right people, and then figure out how we're going to grow this. But also don't be afraid to kind of throw it away if it didn't work. But start small. I mean, and because the opposite is what I see is when people start with technology and then like think about, how we're going to show that this technology is going to be great. And it reminds me a bit of VR vibes that we've seen, and then find the problem that fits with that technology, and then they immediately involve too many people. It gets too big, then it becomes hard to stop, and it also takes very long. And I love like small things that can actually scale, and that scaling is where a lot of effort goes into scaling. But if you can do that, then you have success. Stay focused. Don't get distracted with new bells and whistles. Stay focused at the essence. Slowly grow.
Wonderful. Thank you. This is a really good sentence to end this with. So Dominic, I love it. Thank you so much for being my podcast guest.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Thank you for having me.
I had this joke with Craig Crawford. That we're going to talk again in 10 years and see where AI is really at.
There.
So I'm looking forward. Maybe I can invite you as well.
In 10 years, we're going to dig it up.
Exactly. And then we can bring back this podcast and be like, this is what we said back then. Did it come true or not?
Maybe we don't need to wait for 10 years. I think in 3 years, 5 years, you'll be able to see significant shit. Even if you think about now, like 5 years ago, I think there is already like a very different world than it is today in our field.
See you again in 5 years then.
Absolutely. I'm putting it in my calendar right now.
Thank you, Dominic.
Thank you.
All right. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.